Hey YouTube. I was asked to comment on the Onision Shay drama. Drama isn't usually my thing, but I thought I do have something at least to contribute. I wanted to kind of explain to people why it is that there are people who feel the way that Onision feels about circumcision. I know that it seems to the average, person that he's just like being a belligerent dick and like, making a big deal out of nothing and etc. etc. First, I've heard some say that he's just trying to be an attention grabber and it's disingenuous. Obviously, he's got a certain persona, and he's sort of, there's a little shock value or whatever to the things that he does. So, there might be some kind of show involved. But what people should know is that that perspective is actually valid in the way that there are really people who feel that way. He's representing a perspective, and there are actually a growing number of people who feel that way. Being educated about circumcision is the most sure way to make you opposed to it, because circumcision, believe it or not, is not what you think. And like I said, the more you look into it, the more you kind of can understand why it is that people would say inflammatory words like mutilation, and why people come from such a place of anger. Also, the foreskin is not what you think. We have this like cultural perspective that a particular natural body part is so heinous that it has to be chopped off the minute you're born. It just has to come off, and that is, it's understandable that people think that if you're raised in that environment, which is why, I don't think that Shay is a bad guy or a bad parent or evil or, whatever. He's just an average American, and average Americans have grown up being circumcised, obviously. TMI, Shay's circumcised, okay. It was done without his consent. It was done when he was a teeny baby. He grew up in a society that told him that it was better for him. And like so many other parents, they did what gets done. As an intactivist, I don't go so far as to say that, that people who do circumcision are just like heinous, horrible monsters. But that is the way that it feels. So just to kind of let people in on this perspective, when you first find out what circumcision really is, you're just in disbelief. I myself could not look at a little boy without having my guts feel like they were ripped out of me for probably a good 2 years. In fact, I wrote something on drmama.org. If you want to go there, I'll put the link up, and you can see I wrote a little thing on Intactivism and trying to stay positive, and how when you first discover what's really going on, and that circumcision is not what you think, and the foreskin is not what you think, you're just so filled with disbelief. You're just so filled with disgust, that you cannot believe that people could do such a heinous thing, that, it can be really overwhelming. And so people should know that it's a very valid perspective. I mean, the way that Onision behaved is unfortunate. Okay, judgment is never productive, but the anger you know, and the negativity is just, once you find out what circumcision really is, that's the way you can't help but feel. And there are a growing number of men who are feeling like that if they were circumcised against their will, that was rape. Someone held them down and forcibly, painfully, most likely without anesthesia, amputated part of their body, part of their most precious part of their body. And, you know, if you can imagine how you would feel if you found out one day that your neighbors had their little girl's labia cut off, then you can imagine how some people feel about circumcision, because they don't allow our cultural coloring of girl circumcision is bad, but boy circumcision is good. That's all society. That's all bullshit. You know, so if you can imagine for a moment the way you would feel about your neighbor cutting off part of their little girl's genitals, then that is exactly how people who are in the know about circumcision feel about male circumcision. For the record, Shay's not a bad parent. Anybody who circumcised their kid is not a bad parent. You know, they're just doing what people who don't know what's really going on do. You know, they're just doing what gets done. And so naturally, being an intactivist, that's what we're called. I would prefer that people do the research, you know, and not just whatever the New York Times has to say about circumcision curing AIDS. You know, I mean, fuck that shit. But, you know, really go looking. I mean, there's got to be something to it if people are saying, you know, really heinous things. Find out exactly why they're saying that, you know. And I'd like to say, too, that, you know, this is not about, you know, whether or not Onision's language or behavior was out of line. Whether or not, you know, like what side of the fence you fall on in this argument. Don't associate that with the argument of circumcision. I mean, Shay's a great guy. Everybody, like, loves him and he's funny and whatever. That doesn't mean that circumcision's okay. Okay, these very different things. And what we're missing in this argument, while we're distracted by the drama and we're distracted by the concept of whether or not circumcision is a benefit, you know, medically, this, that, or whatever, the point that really needs to be evaluated here is actually an ethics issue. You know, the point is, should you be forcibly removing part of someone else's genitals when you truly don't need to? I mean, if it's a sexual thing, people can make those decisions when they're competent and sexually active. There's no reason to do that when they're 2 freaking days old. So I have actually broken that down a bit. If you'd like to watch my videos, the human right part 1 and 2 is more of an evaluation of that, you know, from more of a philosophical perspective, as it should be. Okay, that's enough. Thanks for watching.